What up, nerds? So, with all your free time, maybe you're looking up at the sky a little bit more, and you might have noticed that there's a full moon coming up. It's actually going to happen in April 7th. It's 5 days before Easter. And if you like looking up at the moon a lot, like over the years, you might notice that every year, just before Easter, there's a full moon. Of course, I'm talking about the Easter celebrated by Western churches and not Eastern Orthodox churches. Now, either way, this seems like a crazy coincidence until you realize how the date for Easter is computed. So, unlike some holidays like New Year's or Christmas or the 4th of July, which have a fixed date, or a lot of other holidays like Thanksgiving or Memorial Day, which fall on a fixed day, Easter's date depends on the cycles of the moon. More specifically, Easter Sunday is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. Now that's not completely true. Churches, instead of using the actual spring equinox, they use the nominal value of March 21st to make life easier. So this might be a confusing computation. It's pretty involved, so let's take a look at a few examples just to get a good feel for it. So let's look at when the earliest Easter and the latest Easters can be. So what would have to happen for the earliest Easter would be, well, we would need the full moon to happen on the equinox, so on March 21st, say, and that would also have to be a Saturday. So when all of these happen, then we would have Easter on March 22nd. On the flip side, the latest that Easter would be if the full moon happens just before the equinox, and then the next full moon happens a full, say, like 29 days later, so on April 18th. And if that day happened to be a Sunday, then Easter would be the next Sunday, which would be April 25th. Now, either of these two extremes is a pretty rare thing, so Easter hasn't been on March 22nd since 1818, and the next time it'll happen is in 2285, so it's super rare. The latest Easter is a little bit more common, so the next time that we'll have an Easter on April 25th is in 2038. You could look at a lunar calendar and see that the full moon happens just about the equinox, and that one doesn't count, and then the next one occurs on April 18th, which you could see is a Sunday, and since Easter is the Sunday following the first full moon, then in that year it'll be on the 25th. So with all these computations, you might realize the importance of having an accurate calendar. So say we were tasked with trying to figure out how many days there are in a year, like a couple millennia ago, we were trying to figure that out. And say we just said there's 350 days. Well, and then say we start our new year sometime in the winter, and then 350 days later, we might say, oh, it's the start of a new year. And then we keep doing this. After another 350 days, we celebrate New Year's again. And since we're off from the true value, our New Year's is going to drift, and eventually we would see that New Year's is taking place in the summer, and that's no good. Having a calendar that's off by a little bit might not seem like a big deal, but then after a long amount of time, that'll mean your calendar is pretty far off from what you want it to be. So a 365-day calendar is okay, but it was around, so Julius Caesar made the reform to add leap days because the amount of days in the year is closer to 365 and a quarter. So every 4 years you would want to add an extra day to account for this. Now, this was a little bit more precise, but it wasn't fully accurate, and Easter started to drift earlier and earlier because a true year is actually close, a little bit less than 365 and a quarter days. It's just like 365 plus a quarter minus 3 over 400. So every 400 years, with just regular old leap days every 4 years, we would be adding 3 too many years. Now, it's no big deal for one lifetime, but after hundreds and hundreds of years, that'll start to push the calendar. So Pope Gregory VIII made a new reform in the 1500s so that years that end in 100, like 2100, 2200, 2300, they won't have leap years. But then if they're divisible by 400, they still do. So that's why back in 2000 we still had a leap year. And in 2400 we'll have a leap year. I hope y'all learned something cool today about leap years and Easter and the moon. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe.